Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a manuscript all ready to go, a book still in your head, or maybe even 300 sheets of loose leaf shoved in a drawer, please visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. And yes, every month I get somebody sending an envelope filled with paper. It does happen. You are going to be so thrilled today to meet our three guest authors who have undoubtedly unleashed themselves. Our first author today, Rebecca Rosenberg, is the author of Champagne Widows. Champagne Widows is such a wonderful story about my favorite, and it'll be your favorite champagne, Clicquot champagne. We're also joined today by Anna Svetchnikov, who wrote I Deserve More. And boy, that is so eye-catching there on the cover. It makes me want to buy it right away. And then finally, Joan Foor is going to lead us on My Heart's Journey, chasing love through Europe on a motor scooter. And you're going to love hearing all about that. So first, let me introduce Rebecca Rosenberg, the author of Champagne Widows. Thanks for joining us, Rebecca.
Cheers. Of course, I have a little champagne, so cheers to that. Nice to be here.
I love the glass, the earrings, the banner in the background. You are ready.
I've got the champagne flute earrings. This is what I give my review crew, and I'm still looking for a review crew because my book is not published until March of 22.
Okay. So, Rebecca, could they go to your website at rebecca-rosenberg.com and sign up for that review crew?
They could, or they could do it directly at rebecca-rosenberg.com and ask to be on my review crew. And I will actually be sending you a digital copy of Champagne Widows, and we can go from there.
Fantastic. Wow. I love that. That's just fantastic. So give us a little peek in. Do you mind giving us a little synopsis to get us started?
Absolutely. So Barbara Nicole Clicquot. In fact, I even have visuals for you.
Oh, I love that.
Barbara Nicole Clicquot lived in Champagne, and this is a beautiful picture of what it looks like in France. And it actually looks like where I live in Sonoma. So the rolling hills and all the vineyards, and it's so beautiful. So she lived here in 1800s, and she dreamed of being a champagne maker. So she had a very special gift called le nez. So le nez means the nose. And with the nose, she could smell all the wonderful different smells that it takes to make champagne. But her mother always told her that that was a curse because she was also very particular and persnickety, and she would smell things and she couldn't stand it. So she would hold her nose. And in the 1800s, there were lots of horrible smells. So she was kind of a persnickety girl, but she dreamed of making champagne, which in those days was really difficult because they had to hand pick the grapes and hand put them into the barrel press and stomp on them to create the juice, and then put them into bottles, which they put in caves in Champagne. And this is actually a picture, sorry for the glare, and actually a picture of the Champagne cave of Veuve Clicquot. Wow. Now, Veuve Clicquot, we were just mentioning, that is this orange label champagne that you've probably seen. And it's one of the biggest champagne houses in the country. And this little gal, 20-year-old, started it. But her problem in the book is who? Napoleon. So Napoleon was the emperor of France. and he actually shut down France and made it so she could not ship her champagne and sell her champagne anywhere. And so she was basically fighting Napoleon for 13 years while he was trying to take over Europe. And that is the book in a nutshell, her struggle. So this is a quote: "For anyone who loves champagne, a must-read novel about Veuve Clicquot."
Fantastic. And I love
That's my quarter tour.
I love the visuals too. Thank you so much. Now, I know you mentioned it briefly, but I want to make sure everyone heard where you live, because that definitely inspires your love of champagne, I'm sure.
Yes. So I live in Sonoma Valley, which is right next to Napa Valley. And I live on a lavender farm. Ooh. And this is my first book about my lavender farm. And so I am looking right now past you guys. I am seeing all the vineyards pretty much like that picture that I showed you, but we live on a lavender farm. So we don't grow the grapes, but we grow the lavender. So that was my first entree into writing a book, was writing something that I know about, lavender. And now, since I've been living in wine country for 30 years, I'm writing about the champagne and winemaking, and it's a lot of fun.
Can you tell me a little bit about that cover image? That is just fabulous.
I love it. Thank you so much. This is a painting that was done in 1915, and it was for a magazine to advertise champagne. So it was the beginning of this kind of beautiful poster art that was so prevalent then. And this man's name is Lou Mayer. And there isn't a lot written about him. He was just a magazine artist, but I love this image. And then I think what's exciting is that there is a sparkling wine that has the same label. And this sparkling wine, which is called Breathless Sparkling Wine, it's here. This is made by my best friend, Sharon Cohn. So I love the fact that I have a wine label on my book cover.
Oh my goodness. So you're all ready for book clubs. You've got the wine ready. You'll have the correct label there for a book club event.
Definitely. And they're selling, the winery is selling these two as a gift package. So that will be fun.
Oh,
to do that with book club.
Okay.
So again, anybody could just could email me, and we'll get going on the book club.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You are making me so sorry that we're not all together in the studio drinking wine, holding up books.
But I have to burst your bubble that I'm drinking Kavita.
Well, I think it is a little early in the day still.
A little bit, yeah.
That's a little. I know this will air at night, but it is early in the day when we're filming.
Yeah.
So I know that you have written about strong women before. Do you mind just sharing with our viewers some of your other titles? Because I love that theme of strong women.
Yes, if you go to my website, I say that I write about glorious women who lived in the past and whose stories haven't been told. And so I like to find these women. This was my first novel, and it was The Secret Life of Mrs. London. This is Jack London's wife, who really helped him write 50 books in 15 years. 50 books in 15 years. And if you don't think that is a feat, I can tell you it's close to impossible. So she did the lion's share of his work. And she ended up having an affair with his very good friend, Houdini. So when I found out this love triangle between Jack London, Houdini, and Charmian London, I was really inspired to write this book. So one thing we were talking about before we came on the air is what inspires you? How do you get that inspiration to write a book. And I really think that real people or things around you, like I'm in the middle of vineyards and I grow lavender, and this Jack London has a park, a 1,000-acre park, which was his beautiful mansion, right across from me. And those are the things that got me really excited to write books. This is another one, which is Gold Digger. And this one came to me when I was growing up as a little girl. This is a real girl, a real woman, 20-year-old woman who was a gold miner. And she came west for this gold mine, and she found herself abandoned and pregnant and living alone. And she married an old prospector and ended up the most scandalous but richest women in the country in 1878. So again, I love these stories that haven't been told, and showing what women have had to deal with through time.
Well, I certainly love your inspirations on subject matter, but tell me a little bit about just writing. I mean, there are plenty of people who live in Sonoma and Napa and don't have your talent. So how did you first get started writing? Is it with like a fabulous third grade teacher or something?
I really think I was inspired by these stories. Like I was,
Wow.
like I said, really inspired by the stories. But to me, having an idea is easy. Like I have many ideas, and people always tell me, oh, you should write about this or that or the other thing. What is hard and what people don't do is to sit down at their desk every day and write.
Yes.
And to me, that's the best advice. And I see Joan nodding. We have to sit down and write and make it happen, or it doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I love that. I think you're one of our first authors that the writing grew out of the story, not that you were writing and then you came up with an idea for a story. Many people just loved creative writing from a young age, but these stories really spoke to you and made you the writer that you are. And that's a very exciting
Stephanie, I never thought of that, but it's really true.
That's very
because I was in advertising before, so I knew how to write, but it wasn't the writing that I just wanted to be a writer. It was the stories that are so exciting.
Interesting. That's very different from most people, and I love that tradition. So tell me what's next on your hit parade. I hope you're going to keep writing.
Yes, the next book will be the next in the series of Champagne Widows, and it's about Madame Pommery.
Ooh.
And so she lives like 75 years later. And so she has an entirely different story. And then after this widow, there's another widow, Bollinger. So these are women who lived in France, who made champagne. And by the way, it was totally illegal for them to own property or a business at that time. So it was very, very difficult, not just like us saying, oh, I think I'll start a winery, which would be difficult enough, but it's against the law. So they had to figure out a way around that.
Now, were they only allowed to own a business if they were married or if their husband was deceased or something?
Well, that is the Champagne widow loophole. So the only way they could own a business is if they were a widow. And that's why all three of these women that I'm going to write about, that's why they never remarried, because in fact, there's a very heartbreaking part of this book where she's really in love with someone new after her husband dies, and she can't marry him or else she'll lose everything that she's been working on. So that is a tough issue, but that is the only legal way. Otherwise, if they were married, their husband would own the business, or if they or their father. So only men were allowed to own things, and that just kind of blows me away. not been that long since we've had those rights.
Well, it hasn't really been that long at all since we've had all those rights.
No, it hasn't. No.
It really hasn't. But since they can only be widows to own a business, I hope that no one went for that loophole and knocked off their husband just to own a winery.
So, yeah, well, that would be a fun next book to write, wouldn't it?
Well, Rebecca, I have no doubt if there's a Champagne widow out there who arranged her own widowhood, you would be the one to find it. That's for sure.
You know, my friend who owns this Breathless Champagne, they are three sisters, but they do have husbands, so I can't write about them.
Okay.
But I want to write about them. That would be fun.
But you'll find someone, I have no doubt.
Okay.
Our next author today is Anna Svetchnikov, who wrote I Deserve More. And I love the story behind this. It's a story about the adventures of Claire and her cat, Archie. One day they found a magic wand that gave them a chance to change their lives. Claire and Archie went on an amazing journey of self-exploration and self-reflection. This book is based on the concept of narrative therapy and includes therapeutic exercises for children and parents to practice at home. Please welcome Anna Svetchnikov. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, such a thrill to have you. And tell me a little bit first about narrative therapy before we dive into the book.
Absolutely. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and narrative therapy is a concept that helps parents and children to rewrite their own lives and have a new concept. So in narrative therapy, there's externalization, where you take something negative and you externalize it. You separate it from the person. For example, you take your anger and you separate it from a person, and then you learn how to overcome your anger.
Wow. Okay.
So when I interview clients, I talk about anger as something separate. So you're not an angry child. You have the anger that we need to overcome together.
Gotcha. And before that, they kind of internalized it, that was part of their persona. Exactly.
So you don't want to be a bad kid, right? You don't want to be an angry kid. You're just a child who has something that they need to work on.
Very nice. Very nice. And by calling it narrative therapy, you said you get to write your own story. I like that.
You can always rewrite your own story. Yes.
Oh, what a beautiful concept, that whatever, I'm sure you deal with children who have had terrible things happen to them.
Absolutely.
Trauma and abuse and such, and they get to rewrite their story now.
Yes.
Fabulous. So tell me a little bit about this book and how this works in narrative therapy.
Absolutely. So this is one of many books that I wrote. I write for kids right now, and I'm working on parenting books as well. But writing for children is very important, because I feel like for children, it's very hard to find the right words, the right approach, and just find something they're interested in. So what I was trying to do, I was trying to find something that I would love to read if I would be here as a child. And I have 3 kids. Unfortunately, I don't have any girls. I have all boys. So I have to envision, if I would have a girl, if I would have a daughter, what would she like to read about? So I'm assuming it's going to be magic and fairies. And then I bring the real world, how our preteens are nowadays, right? They're on their iPhones. They don't want to do chores. They have a lot of things. They have access to everything, but they feel like they have nothing at all. So that's all incorporated in this story. So this girl, she has everything. She has loving family. She has friends. She even has Archie, her favorite cat, who follows her around, but she feels like, the grass is greener on the other side. She doesn't have what she wants. She's not happy. So what I'm teaching kids in this story is to be present and be happy with what you have. Really appreciate and just slow down and be present.
I'll bet that that's a problem with a lot of children and a lot of adults too. I dare say we have so much, and yet we're not necessarily present, and we're not necessarily grateful either.
Absolutely. Also, the power of positive thinking is very important because you can take anything, right? And you can say this glass is half full, half empty, or just right. And I know a lot of people would say like, hey, listen, I don't have this, so that's why I'm not capable. No, we're all capable of doing things, right? We're all great. We just need to find that strength within ourselves, and we need to always think positive.
Oh my goodness, what a beautiful thought that is. Now, did you start writing children's books right away when you became a licensed narrative therapist, or before or after? Like, how does that work with your training?
I was always creative, and I would express my creativity through different ways. I would take photos, and I would, do art, and even make dresses and doing different things. But writing was something that I would write, but never would be confident enough to publish. And then we had COVID. So everyone in self-isolation, everyone's home, there's nothing to do, everyone's scared, everyone's in the same place. I was working a lot during COVID. I worked with a lot of kids, I worked with a lot of families, parents, and the common topic that I heard is anxiety about what's coming, what's happening, and how to overcome this anxiety. So my first book was Awesome Team versus Coronavirus. It's the comic book for little kids, and it includes therapeutic exercises to overcome their anxieties. So as I said, I never did the books. I don't know where to start. So what I did, I just wrote the book. I took my camera and I took photos. And then I created the comic book with Photoshop. And since I didn't have any access to anyone, only my children, and then, for main characters. So my kids are Anthony, Adrian, and Apollo. There are 3 boys who fight the bad guys, who fight the villains and save the day. And then I needed the bad guys. So the only 2 people I had access to was my husband and my mom. So my mom said like, sure, I'll be the bad guy. I don't care. So she became the Coronavirus, and her name is Vera. That's why we created Coronavirus persona. And then it was so fun, and I used it with my kids. I used it with my clients, and they loved it. They were able to comprehend through storytelling format the information and really utilize the exercises in the book. What to do, how to recognize anxiety, and what to do to calm down and use those coping skills in the moment. So I'm like, wow, I can do this. I can do more. So I created another series, I Can Do It. And this is just straight up therapeutic exercises for kids to use at home. And we have topics like anger, anxiety, sadness, all emotions, social skills, empathy, kindness, you name it. And that series, I work with my 8-year-old son. So he's my main he's my co-author, right? He gave me ideas, what's going on, what's happening for the kids, what's the main concepts and topics that I should be concentrated on. And then I Deserve More is one of my, babies that I loved. And that was the story that was so magical. And I wanted to incorporate that magic world and the human world and therapy and make it really, I was thinking of the Disney movies. And I was like, well, what if we take the Disney movie and make it very therapeutic? So what's going to happen?
That's fantastic. Sounds so neat. Can't wait to read it.
It does. And now you said how many books did you write over pandemic?
So I published over 40 books since April of 2020, and I have about 15 more books. I mean, there are kids' books, but I have different ideas. I have different concepts. I wrote about procrastination. I worked on different styles of books. So it's really can be really, I guess, close to different ages and styles. So I have comic books, I have Disney style books, I have books for little kids. I'm just a baby about a toddler who's very mischievous, and he's always wants to help, but it doesn't work out. I have books written from hamster perspective, helping his friend how to be more self-sufficient and brave and how to stand up for self and others.
Oh my goodness. I have to ask, you're very creative and you're doing so many books. Did you do this cover?
No, I was fortunate enough to work with amazing illustrators from all around the world.
Oh, wonderful.
So this This particular illustrator, we made 2 books. This is our first one. The second one is in production. It's a chapter book. It's even more amazing. It's even more,
Oh my gosh.
more story and more interesting things there. But this one is from Macedonia. I work with illustrators from Brazil, from Italy, from England, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Mexico, Brazil, Vietnam, Malaysia. I'm trying to name them all.
Wow.
And it's amazing because it's always so interesting. It's another adventure how you find the right person for your story.
Absolutely.
And because every single creative is different, right? They have different styles, and you're just trying to make sure they can describe or show what you're trying to intend to tell your clients.
Exactly. Tell me something for all of our other children's authors out there. When you work with an illustrator, how does it feel to actually see what was in your head finally come to life on the page? How does that feel to you?
It's definitely amazing. I still, every time I get, pictures back, all the illustrations, I'm super excited. I like the process of really picking the character, because sometimes I have, an exact idea of how this character should look like, but sometimes I'm still trying to figure it out. And when they send me a couple of options, I always ask my kids, which one would you pick?
Oh, I love that. So you have beta readers right there in
Yep, absolutely. I have that focus group who's helping me.
Well, that's good because, Rebecca is trying to get reviewers, and she has to give away earrings. You've got them right there in your kitchen.
And they're all coming in, right, for the play dates.
Oh, well, that's true. If you have other children coming in as well, you can ask them their opinion.
Yeah, weekly reviewers in my kitchen.
Oh my goodness, how exciting. Well, that is an awful lot of books that you have written in such a short period of time.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank
amazing.
you. It's definitely exciting. That's definitely fun.
I do have to ask about this narrative therapy because you are my first. You decided this before you went to college, I guess I'm asking how one becomes a narrative therapist.
So I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I work, it's not just a narrative therapy that I practice.
So it's
I do cognitive behavioral therapy, I do narrative therapy, I do dialectical behavioral therapy. It just, I'm just making sure that one approach does not fit all. I always find the right approach for the client.
Oh, I like
for the
that.
family.
Oh,
and for me, to be honest, first I went to biochemistry. It was not, psychology was not something I was thinking I would do. I'm like, well, I'm in science and math, let me do this. So I'm like, I think I want to be a doctor. So when I went into biochemistry and then I took one psychology course, I fell in love with psychology, and I was like, wow, this is something is close to me, and I love to be inside someone's brain and really figure out why they're doing things.
Interesting.
And then I transferred to psychology. So I got my undergrad in psychology, and then I went in for a master's in family therapy because it was more interesting, not just from one's perspective, but from multiple perspectives, really to figure out the family dynamic, not just one person. And usually when you work with one person and trying to change something, and then they go back into their family, you can see the same dynamic, same pattern. So if you work with the whole family to some degree, then you can really make a change.
Very, very interesting. Now, during lockdown, while you were writing all of these books, how were you doing therapy? Do you do it on Zoom? Or?
I was doing telehealth, yes.
Okay.
In a safe platform, we were doing telehealth, and it was challenging, to be honest. You need to be very creative, especially when you work with children.
Oh, I can only imagine.
You really need to come up with things. To be honest, that's why I came up with all the books. So I use them in our sessions to engage my kids, the kids that I work with, and really make a change.
Yeah, I can only imagine what telehealth is like with a little kid.
It's definitely interesting, but it can be very, very engaging. So you always need to gamify the process. You always need to come up with things. That's why, writing for kids is, I feel like very challenging because you need to find the right approach, the right language, so they know what you're talking about. I'm taking this aspect of narrative therapy or dialectical behavioral therapy, and I need to break it down and explain. And then usually the story helps to really take in the information, process, and learn.
Right. Okay. So what's next for you? Do you have any other books on the horizon? What's going on?
I am working on my chapter book. And then I have my comic book for older kids, 9+. And I have 2 of my parenting books.
Oh my gosh. How do
I
you
have
have,
a few things, few projects.
how on earth do you have time to be a mother to 3 young boys?
It's not easy. It's challenging. I usually do all my fun things, all my projects at night,
Okay.
and I try to involve them. That's why I involved my older one into one project. I can do it, so we do it together. We create this, fun time one-on-one, and we create the books. And then with my middle one, we do Goodnight Apollo. So same concept, same topics of kindness, happiness, empathy. But then we write the stories about the spoiled princess, about grumpy pirate, and then we put in different therapy aspects into it. And then one thing about my books, I always add exercise in the end of the book so kids can practice at home. So whatever they just learn, I always want to make sure they have something tangible. So they take away something from the book and they can practice it.
Fantastic. I love that. Well, I'm so excited about all you're doing. Boy, you put some of us to shame if all we did in pandemic is gain 5 pounds. So instead, 40 books. That's just amazing.
Yes, Anna, I'm totally impressed and motivated by you.
Absolutely. She's totally motivated any of us who are just bumps on logs.
But that was my way of coping with stress. Some people were drinking, some people were exercising, some people were just sleeping. And I was trying to write and trying to really step outside of my comfort zone. And I don't know, exercising and drinking champagne is awesome as well.
Absolutely.
You just need to find your way, right? How to cope with stress.
We all need to get through this whole thing. Thank you so much. Our third author today, Joan Foor, wrote My Heart's Journey, Chasing Love Through Europe on a Motor Scooter. Let's take a look at some photos behind this exciting story in this video trailer. And she writes that an attractive, charismatic young woman in love wonders if this is true love or infatuation. Paco, a handsome, retired professional soccer player, does not understand why two people in love have to marry to live together. Joan's religious upbringing makes this impossible. Unable to handle the pressures of her job and Paco's persistence, Joan convinces him she needs a vacation. He reluctantly agrees on a trip to Spain to meet his family as long as she stays with his mother. Please welcome author Joan Foor. We're thrilled to have you and love the picture on the cover of your book. Absolutely.
Well, that cover was a little bit of a problem because I wanted to use a European map.
Oh, okay.
What I didn't find out, you can't use a European map without getting the rights to be able to use it.
Gotcha. So when the European police came for you after the book was published, was that a thing?
Not really, but it took me a couple of weeks and I had to write to Austria and pay to be able to use a portion of their map.
Oh my gosh. Well, we better enjoy it then while we see.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what inspired writing this book.
Well, I've been telling stories for years about various countries that I visited during this initial trip to Europe. And I, for the first time in my life, I felt free. I had 5 months that I could travel about Europe without worrying about money or worrying about anything. And I was trying to um, get out there and see if I could make up my mind. Could I marry this Spanish soccer player that had such a temperament? And I felt I needed to meet his family and understand, is this what all Spanish men are like? So I traveled, and I figured the easiest way to travel, I could travel a longer period of time if I bought a scooter.
Wow. The joys of traveling through Europe, being in love, checking out the countryside, and a soccer player to boot. My goodness.
Something. And of course, in those.
Joan, how old were you?
What's that?
How old were you?
How
old were you?
28.
In the book? 28.
28. Now, Joan.
Good, you were old enough.
Yeah, she was old enough. She was old enough.
Right.
But evidently her strict parents might not have agreed with that.
No, they didn't agree with my taking the trip, and they thought it was too dangerous. But I was too naive to realize the dangers that really existed. So I just kept traveling.
Don't all of our adult children say that?
Well, the reason for writing the book, of course, was during COVID, we were all had shut in. And I thought, well, I should put all these stories together, so I found my old diary. I kept a diary the whole 5 months, and every day I would write something in the diary, whether I was in Portugal, North Africa, or wherever I was. And I decided that it would be good to get that out there and have people be able to lighten up a little bit and travel, whether they've ever traveled before or not. If they have traveled to Europe, they would see familiar places, they would enjoy it and get a kick out of it. And it would kind of take them away from the COVID of being shut in all the time.
So like Anna, you're a pandemic author.
Well, you could say that, yes. I've written several books.
That's fantastic. So you kept a diary during the trip. I was going to ask you if you journaled or wrote things down during the trip to remember.
Yes. I kept a diary, and fortunately enough, I found it. I had it in a closet, and I had just sold my house in Northern California, and I found all these old memorabilia that I had saved from the trip.
Wow.
So I put it all together.
Fantastic. That's one of the things that they say to writers in general. If you want to get started writing, that you should keep a journal or a diary. Joan, do you keep a diary now that you're home from this trip?
No, I don't. However, there are times when I can't sleep, and I have a notebook by the bed, and I will jot down things that come to my mind for other ideas to write other stories. If I choose to do so. I write a lot of short stories as well.
Fantastic. Anna, Rebecca, do either of you keep journals or diaries?
Yeah, I found one from my high school years. It was really interesting to read.
Oh, I'm sure it was, if you found one from your high school years. Rebecca, do you journal or?
I don't. I like to be in my next character's head and thinking about her all the time. And that really soothes me when I can't sleep. I'm like, okay, she's in this situation, and what happened to her in childhood that she feels this way? And I love that. I just love that creative. It's like your best friend for as long as you're writing that book, what she's about, what makes her tick, and what she's going to be motivated by.
That's fantastic. And you saying that makes me think, Joan, this is about you when you were younger. So
yes,
that's you, and it's your best friend while you're writing. How does it feel to go walking down memory lane?
You know what? It was exciting. It was really exciting. It was a catharsis to be able to go back and remember all of these things that happened, and to think that I traveled all these months out in the open air, free, about the freest I ever was in my life. Who is able to take 5 months out of their life and just go and buy a motor scooter and get on it and travel wherever they feel like going?
Oh my goodness. Boy, goodness knows, a lot of us here wish we had 5 months on a motor scooter all over.
Yeah, right.
Joan, sorry, I think it's really impressive that you actually did this, Joan, that you took those diaries and made it a book, because I have plenty of friends who've done exciting things in their lives and say they're going to write a book and they never do. So it goes back to what I said earlier. It takes sitting down at the desk and doing it, and you did it during COVID, and that is amazing. And
Thank you.
that's just fantastic.
You're so right, Rebecca. I hear from so many people that want to write a book. So many people come to me, and when they hear what I do, they say, oh, I have a great story. I had a great this, I had a great that. Joan, you did it. You did.
Well, I did it. And you know,
Absolutely did
everybody has a story to tell, but it's a matter of sitting down and writing it. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. So how did you do it? How did you get started?
Well, I was bored, to tell you the truth. I mean, the fact that I could only go out and walk the dog in the morning and I had to wear a mask, and my homeowners, I thought, what am I going to do to keep myself busy other than exercising? So I got out the old diary and started writing, and every day I wrote for about 8 months.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. And you know, you're saying that, and Anna, who wrote during pandemic, you know, historically, after the Dark Ages, when they had, you know, such turmoil and disease and pandemics and all sorts of things, what came right after it was the Renaissance. And I think of that so often now, because so many people who were locked up were so busy. You know, we were all in our little spaces, but not just doing nothing. We were creating, and all those ideas were melding, and we have two, you know, the two of you here, and was so inspiring that you just said, enough with this exercise. I want to get these stories down.
Right, and it delighted me to know that the people that read the story, it did lighten up their life during the COVID.
Oh, that's
Got a
fabulous.
kick out of it, and some of them had never traveled to Europe, and they said, I felt like I was really there, that I was able to see Europe for the first time.
Oh, isn't that amazing? Now, tell me something. This is a kind of funny question. If your mom could read the book, what do you think?
Well, she wouldn't have been too crazy about me chasing after a professional soccer player. I know that. Nor would she like the fact that I'm running around Europe by myself.
Exactly.
And on the motor scooter would be even worse. She'd have had fit.
Now, do you have children, grandchildren, Joan? Any
No, I don't.
younger family? Oh, well, that's kind of good. I was thinking if they read the book, then they're all going to think, we have carte blanche. We can go running around.
Well, my family got a big charge out of it. I don't have any children because Huntington's disease ran in my family. And as a result, I didn't want to have any children for fear that I would, you know,
Completely
have that
understandable.
disease. Yeah, right.
Absolutely, completely understandable. I was thinking it's kind of, you dodge that bullet so that they're not sitting there saying, "Hey, mom, you did it. I can do it too."
Right. So I don't have to worry about that.
Don't have to worry about that. So, but your family got a charge out of it, huh?
Oh, they did. And my cousin said, oh, if I just had the guts to be able to do that. How could you do that? I said, I didn't have any fear whatsoever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you know, there's a question that often comes up in mastermind groups and in personal development groups that says, what would you do in your life if you had no fear? because so often it's our fear of failing. If we knew that we could do it, and you did two of the things that come up on that list all the time. One, of course, is traveling all over because people wish that they had your guts to do that. And the other is that you wrote a book about it. Those are two things that people say if they had no fear, they would do. You're kind of running out of things, Joan. I don't know if there's anything else left for you to do.
Well, there are.
What else do you want to do if you had no fear?
Well, I want to go back to show business.
Really?
Wow.
Oh,
Didn't expect that.
Tell us all.
Are you going to be a comedian or what are you going to do?
Well, I studied dancing with Gene Kelly's sister, Louise Kelly,
Wow.
back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I can tap dance like almost anybody else can.
Wow.
And so I danced with a group called the Boogie Woogie Mamas for 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And we danced for the veterans. We danced. We had our own big show every year at the Performing Arts Studio. We had, we went around and took care of the sick people. And I actually feel like I'd like to do another show.
That sounds great.
I think that is just fabulous. If there's any directors out there watching the show, I hope you're hearing this here.
And if they need somebody to do really tap dancing,
real tap dancing,
know how to do a time step, contact me.
Wow, that was definitely not what I was expecting to hear from you, Joan.
It's full of surprises.
We're full of surprises. Anna, is there anything that you would do if you had no fear? Is there any of those things left?
I did a lot of things.
A lot of
We moved during the pandemic. So we used to live in Boston. Now we're in Florida and we're still exploring this beautiful state I love. It's warm and hopefully no depression.
Oh, fantastic.
I did, what did I do? I never done scuba diving, but this is something on my list. I definitely want to see what's underwater, but we did skydiving.
Oh, okay.
We traveled. I definitely want to do more things because it's important to step outside of your comfort zone little by little. So for you to progress and develop and become a better version of yourself, you need to keep working yourself.
Fantastic. Oh, I love all of those things. Rebecca, how about you? No fear. What's next?
I am going to take my inspiration from Anna and Joan. And I'm going to try and write faster, Anna, because you're just astounding me. It takes me a couple of years to write a book. And so I'm going to have you heard of NaNoWriMo?
Oh, sure. Thank you for reminding us. Yes.
So it's the national movement to write a book in a month. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, like Joan, I am going to Europe and I'm not going to have fear. I'm going to Europe on Tuesday and we're going to do a cruise because we're just like tired of being just at home. So we're going to take a cruise. I'm going to outline my book and I'm going to write that whole book during NaNoWriMo. And I'm going to say, Anna, if I can write 40 books, I can at least finish my book. You two really are inspiring because I found COVID hard to focus on my writing. I was worried about family and health and friends and everything that was going on politically. And I found it hard to create my world, but now that it's kind of behind us almost, I'm going to go for it in November and think of Joan and Anna and Stephanie.
Fantastic. It's the Renaissance. Now is
there you go. We'll have a Renaissance.
That's exactly it, because we are definitely on, as they say in golf, the back nine. We're getting out of this and the doors will be opening and you've got a cruise and Anna's got sunshine and oceans now because you weren't scuba diving in Boston, that's for sure.
Oh, nope.
And Joan has a show to produce.
Absolutely. Get those tap shoes out because people are dying to see shows. I live up here in New York City and they just opened Broadway again. So
I heard that.
Oh, I know.
I was so glad because I'm going to come back there. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. You better come back here because they are opening the doors. The shows are, I've had friends who've been at the shows already. And every time the audience, the curtain goes up and the audience has a standing ovation before they even start.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
They are so excited to be back.
Yeah, and our Hollywood Bowl's back, and our theater here in Palm Springs will be opening in December.
Fantastic. That's why I said it's the Renaissance. It's time for us all to do those things that we have been perhaps putting off. I mean, certainly there was good health reasons to put them off, but it's time to fling open the doors and do more. So we're going to look up, we're going to see Anna jumping out of a plane. And Rebecca on a cruise. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I know. It looks fun.
Well, Rebecca, I hope you don't have to wear a mask on that cruise.
I think we'll have to wear masks.
Probably in Europe. Well, I guess it all depends where the cruise is, and they keep changing those rules. Rebecca, I bet you'll have pretty masks. I have a mother who makes masks for me, and she coordinates my masks with my clothing at this point.
Oh, wow.
So I happen to be not that long ago, not far from Rebecca. I'm sorry I didn't know because I was in Napa Valley touring around and I had a mask with wine glasses on it.
Oh,
Yeah. I guess I better go shopping tomorrow because I have refused to let masks be my regular wardrobe. So I only wear black masks. So I better go shopping tomorrow.
You might want to they do make some in a variety of patterns. I mean, if you have to wear it, you might as well rock it,
Might as well.
Well, your cruise, with all due respect, Joan, sounds a lot more comfortable than riding around on a scooter. Wow.
Yeah. I was going to say that's brave just in itself.
Right?
On a scooter. Yeah.
well,
That's
now,
amazing.
Of course, I like the cruises, believe me.
Yeah.
Yes, watch out, Rebecca. We're all going to be on that cruise with you.
I would love it. I would think it's great.
I think it's wonderful. Well, all of you have been an inspiration to me. And Rebecca, I'm so glad you mentioned NaNoWriMo because I always say of this show, definitely I want people to be inspired to meet you and learn more about your books, but also all three of you are such an inspiration about writing, which I think is just amazing. I do want to remind all of our viewers of your books and where to find you. So if I forget anything, please let me know. Rebecca Rosenberg, the author of Champagne Widows. You can find Rebecca at rebecca-rosenberg.com. And Rebecca mentioned that she is absolutely open for, Rebecca, I'm going to switch screens so they can see your sign there. Let me get you up big so they can see your sign there. Thank you. Rebecca at rebeccarosenberg.com, and it is for the Champagne Widows review crew. So Rebecca is looking for reviewers for her review crew, and she'll send you a digital copy of her book. So you definitely want to head over there. And since she just promised us that a new book is being written in November, definitely go to her website and sign up. I'm sure she has a mailing list there that you can sign up and find out news about what she's doing.
Very good.
For Anna Svetchnikov, you definitely want to visit positiveparentinginitiative.com. There's a lot of books there, and I am so inspired to share those. I love the topics you're hitting in all of your different books. So inspiring and so important, whether you're dealing with anxiety in children, which who isn't dealing with anxiety in children nowadays, or self-exploration, insecurities, anger, whatever it might be. I am sure that Anna has a book and can help you and your children. She is also a licensed therapist who can help your family. So positiveparentinginitiative.com. And finally, please head over to Amazon or wherever books are sold and grab a copy of My Heart's Journey, Joan Foor's Chasing Love Through Europe on a Motor Scooter. If you've ever wanted, or maybe you remember that at some point you too were chasing love through Europe on a motor scooter, or maybe only in your dreams, but definitely grab a copy of this. The three of you are just so amazing. I can't believe that we had this time together, and you are so inspiring. I have no doubt that there's another book in all of you, so please, when your next book comes out, come and join us back between the covers so we can share you and all of your journeys with our viewers.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you
Cheers.
so much.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, happy reading and happy writing.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're an author who would be interested in appearing on our show, or perhaps you're a member of a book club, we do host book clubs as well, please visit betweenthecoverstv.com. By the way, at betweenthecoverstv.com, you can watch past episodes in addition to learning more about our authors and guests. So sign up there if you would like to be a guest on the show yourself. And if you have some books that you would like to get written or published, visit redpenguinbooks.com. Thanks so much for joining us.